Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ben Putley. I'm the CEO and co-founder of a company called Alkimi. I'm going to change pace a little bit today. Here's my clicker, great. And talk to you about the future of advertising. Now, there's probably some people in here that don't believe advertising works, but I challenge you to lose your cat or your dog, put a sign on a lamppost, and more often than not, you'll get a call to say it's been found. So the right message at the right time to the right person quite often has a good effect, and that is why the advertising market exists. It's why brands spend tons of money reaching their customers at the right time. Now, Alkimi, some of you may or may not have heard of us. Very simply, we're a digital marketplace built on chain that allows brands, advertisers, and publishers to buy and sell ads in real time. Now, we've existed for 3.5 years. There's 20 of us here in the UK. There's 40 of us over in Bangalore. And kind of this is the first year that I've really felt that we found product market fit. We've been working with some amazing brands. There's probably some logos that you'll recognize here to help these companies realize the performance improvements from buying media on chain. Here's some stats about our network. So recently we opened up our validators. We now have 1,200 validators. That's significant amount of on-chain bandwidth that allows these transactions to take place, allows for resources to be used to make advertising more transparent and more efficient. And now really, I'm going to talk to you today about 3 things. I'd like you to bear with me for a little bit while I give you a brief history lesson. And then for those who don't understand what advertising is, I'm actually going to tell you what's wrong with it. And then finally, us moving into a new era of Web3 ad tech. So journey back with me to 1994. I appreciate some of you might not be able to do that, but for those that you can, thank you. None of us had to worry about charging our phones because our batteries lasted for about 2 weeks. We played Snake. We were amazing at predictive texting. And this is how we spoke to each other. We also only needed 8 megabytes to play GTA. There was no analog stick. It was D-pads only. FIFA players were kind of moving very strangely on football pitches. And the internet looked like this. This has kind of now come back in vogue, but really kind of the first, I guess, iteration of what Web 1 is. And cookies were invented. Now, not the delicious kind, unfortunately, but the kind that allowed websites to remember what it is that you've done on their particular website. That might have been something in your basket. That might have been returning to the logged in page that you're on. But a cookie was an identifier. It allowed brands, publishers, to sell or buy a particular audience. But it's 30 years old now. That's quite a long time. There's not much technology. No one's using that phone I just showed you. Everyone's now on PS5. But ad technology, which is a $600 billion market this year, is using 30-year-old infrastructure. It's going to be $1 trillion by 2028. So we're talking about a significant volume of cash that is currently being spent on 30-year-old infrastructure. And more importantly, I think I really want to spend some time on this point, it's responsible for the ad-funded internet. Now, the ad-funded internet is responsible for keeping content free, accessible to anyone that wants to read it at any time. You probably all come into a paywall, it's annoying, you can't see the content you want, or only content available in certain walled gardens. That's really not the way the internet was intended to be. It should be free, accessible, and open to everyone. The only way that can happen is if it's ad-funded. So how does it get ad-funded? Well, you start here with an advertiser that places a bid on a particular website. You have then a marketplace that matches that bid on a publisher that has the supply or the ad unit that's able then to be purchased. Unfortunately, this is what it looks like in reality. So there's many intermediaries that sit between a buyer and a seller, and they take fees. They also aren't transparent. Only 5% of all ad purchases online are transparent through from the buyer to the seller. 43% of your dollar is lost before a publisher who's creating the content, creating the reason for someone to view your ad is getting paid. It's largely inefficient and, unfortunately, contributes more greenhouse gases to the environment than the aviation industry, which is kind of nuts when you think it's just banners, buttons, and videos on your favorite websites, apps, and TVs. And here's a little analogy for you. So You're creative. Creatives are brilliant. It's like your kitchen, or your front of your room where you bring your guests. Your data is where you make the food, but your basement, you're scared to go down there. There's giant spiders. Your children might think there's monsters. That's really what we're talking about with the infrastructure that's being used today. Now that's where blockchain comes in. Blockchains are brilliant because it's programmable infrastructure that can do a whole host of wonderful things. It can create marketplaces, you can create NFTs, you can allow loyalty programs. It's programmable and it creates efficiencies that don't typically see in centralized infrastructure. And we've used that to build an ad marketplace, an ad exchange, as we call it. Using a ledger, 100% of transactions now are completely financially transparent. So if you're a brand or a publisher that uses our exchange, you can see exactly what happened. Because we have 1,226 validators, we're able to distribute the cost of the infrastructure required to support these kind of auctions and reduce the cost dramatically. We charge between 3 to 8% for anyone that's buying or selling an ad, which is a significant improvement on the 43% and higher you might see when using Web 2 exchanges. And then most importantly, this has really been a mantra for us as a business, is that we meet the market where it is. The standards that we've used, the open source protocols that we've used to create our custom consensus mechanism is completely interoperable with the way in which ads are traded today to reduce the barrier to entry. It's basically zero. You can see some of the brands that we worked with, they are all buying ads on a blockchain because it feels very familiar with the way in which they're purchasing ads today. Now, to go into that, to kind of show you exactly how this works, you have on the left-hand side, it should look familiar, but the money, the brands, and then the publishers. We have portals and software that allow people to do various things required to run, create, sell ad campaigns. We then use our validators to host the auction, notarize those transactions, and then you visit Alkimi Labs to see exactly what went on, how many rewards you're able to earn, and really how your infrastructure is being used to validate ads online and kind of keep the internet ad funded and free. Now, what does that mean really in terms of the flow of capital? Well, you have 100% of your dollar here. Our current average network fee is 6.5%. And then our publishers receive 93.5% of the dollars on the other side. Now, the dollars that are generated by the protocol are used, generally come in fiat. We purchase those ads tokens back and then distribute that to our validators and then also our liquidity pool that are providing some resource to the network. So there's a nice incentive mechanism there for people to help keep the internet ad funded while simultaneously providing value for people that need to do user acquisition, brand awareness, changing purchase intent, or fund content from journalists that are writing it, improve your experience, like paying salaries for what is required when you're creating content online. And we're doing quite well. I like to think this is something you don't come across very often, if I do say myself. We're generating revenue. It's around about $1,700 a day. That puts us in quite good company. And the difference I would say here is that generally, COVID was a slight exception, but advertisers don't care about the price of Bitcoin or Ethereum. They care about getting their message in front of more people. They care about acquiring new customers and generally spend money day in, day out in the process of doing so. And as I said earlier, are spending more money. Kind of money is being spent on acquiring new customers every single day. It's $600 billion this year. It will be $1 trillion by 2028. As it stands today, that is half of all of the money that's in blockchain. So really is a significant opportunity to onboard liquidity that isn't on chain from a sector that really, prior to us had no right to be on chain and now is. As I said, we are onboarding $600 billion of advertising spend on chain. And why now? What's the point? Why are we bothering to do this? And I think that generally the brands that are most important, now one of my mentors was talking to me about this, brands that are successful and persistent and remain, innovate at the right time. And I think what we've seen is some amazing companies, projects, blockchains, create general purpose infrastructure. You can come to Ethereum and do anything. You can come to Solana and you can build an office, own an office. There's a lot you can do with a general purpose infrastructure, but there is kind of a significant knowledge gap, a barrier to entry in understanding the infrastructure, what to do for it, and then finding people that that's solving a problem for. Now, what we've done at Alkimi is taken what is quite a niche problem, albeit on a very large market, but built purpose-built infrastructure that allows brands, publishers, to pay attention to what is a new and innovative technology to solve problems that they have. Like, I know 5,000 people personally that have this problem that we are solving. I can talk to them about it, I do talk to them about it, and we help them make better decisions about the technology they use. Because when technology gets attention by eyeballs, brands want to be there. You know, they want to use that technology to maintain their relevancy, to persist, and kind of be there for the next 100 years. You know, like, that is really important, that brands move to the right technology at the right time. And now is the right time. I borrowed this graph from a presentation I saw from BlackRock, but this is plotting the adoption of the internet since the years it became commercially available. It's plotting the adoption of mobile phones since they became commercially available. And in white, you can see at the top, crypto. So it's standing on the shoulders of giants. This makes sense because it's an internet-based value exchange system, but is being adopted quicker than all of the technologies we've seen historically. AKA, a ton of eyeballs are now paying attention to what is a new and interesting technology. And it's being adopted by the financial mainstream. You know, I won't be the first person to show headlines like this today or the last, but ETFs are breaking records in terms of the volume that's flowing into them. So it's being adopted by the financial mainstream. You've got governments now that are beginning to see the groundswell, want to create policies around crypto assets, their regulations. So it's, again, even 4 years ago, this was not really a conversation that was being having at levels of government like it is today. And that's a very short period of time. And the UK is going to be a leader there. Like, very proud to have been involved with Stand With Crypto. I'm wearing my badge today, but we got the chance to speak to government about making the UK a leader in blockchain. I think it's essential. There's a ton of talent here. We've always been a services hub, and really what blockchain does is allow for better, more efficient services to be offered in a market with a great time zone. And if you don't believe me, believe this guy. He's much smarter than I am. He runs a much more successful business, but he fundamentally believes that on-chain ads takes one of the best Web 2 ad models, can bring it on-chain to use new infrastructure to provide better solutions for brands and publishers that are responsible for keeping the internet ad funded. And that, I think, is something we can probably all get behind. So yeah, thank you. Hope my history lesson wasn't too boring, and I hope that wasn't the first time someone's seen a Nokia 3310. We spoke about what was wrong with advertising, and then finally how Web3 Rails can really provide a new layer of infrastructure to solve a ton of the problems. So yeah, thank you all for listening. Thank you for paying attention. We're here today. If you want to find out more about Alkimi, scan this QR code on the left. If you haven't had enough of me, follow me on Twitter and I can bore you some more. And really, we'll be around later this afternoon. I've got a really exciting panel with a chap called James Trott from Coca-Cola, and then the mentor I spoke about, a guy called Rob Bradley, who's the SVP at Warner Brothers, to discuss about the actual application of this happening right now. So we'll be back on stage again at 4:35, but thank you all for listening. I've been Ben Putley. Cheers. Thank you.